I want to thank you once again for hopping on the call with me. I know you're a busy guy.
No
My
problem.
first question, my first question would be: would you say growing up was basketball always the most important thing to you?
Oh, interesting question. Without a doubt, I would say sports were the most important thing to me. And then I got, like most kids, I played football, basketball, soccer, baseball, swam, and then started to narrow things down and ended up being kind of a soccer or basketball move. It ended up being basketball, kind of that era of specialization. But yeah, let's grew up. My dad played hoops at Duquesne. My oldest brother was a basketball player as well. It's kind of all our family had known was basketball. So playing those sports was a lot of fun, but it seemed like that was always what I wanted to end up doing. Didn't quite attain my goal. I thought I was going to be in the NBA and then be a broadcaster. Just came a bit shy at the end, quite a bit shy of the NBA part.
How was it growing up in Pittsburgh?
I loved it, man. Grew up in a middle-class neighborhood, about 20 minutes south of the Berg. Great family. My mom's Italian, whole family lived in Washington, PA, about 20 minutes away. Large Italian family. My dad grew up in Pittsburgh. Yeah, I had no complaints. Come from a big family, 3 brothers and a sister. A lot of competition within that group. A lot of high expectations from the parents, and better for it.
When you went to Columbia, did you know you wanted to be a reporter after? Did you get to the point where like, I don't think I want to go to the league, but reporting wise, I couldn't make it?
I think I knew once I was going to Columbia, I wasn't going to the league. I was very, very wide-eyed about that. I hoped to go play overseas. Broke my foot a couple times my senior year, had surgery. I probably still should have tried to play until my foot actually broke again. But happy how things turned out. But I wanted to go. I thought I wanted to go into broadcasting, and I did an internship at Madison Square Garden Network going into my senior year, and the environment there was really negative, man. Like really corrosive. They just extended like a management change, I guess, and you don't understand these things. I'm 21 years old. All my friends were in finance. This is the summer before, a couple summers before the economic meltdown. This is 2005. So they're making money, like a lot of money as like interns and enjoying their lives or whatnot. And I'm logging Mets Padres games at 2:30 in the morning while they're telling me, when are you going to meet up? And that was one thing. But then the negative atmosphere, everybody on air to everybody down, made me think, maybe I don't want to do this. So I went into, when I graduated from school, into marketing and advertising. It was a job. I ended up meeting a guy that ran a company called Interpublic Group, which is a holding company, owned a bunch of agencies. His name's David Bell. He's been a mentor in my life for probably many years, but gets me kind of on this track. At the same time, Columbia wanted to start a professional radio station. They'd always been, all our games were broadcasts by WKCR, which is a student-run radio station. So they hired Jerry Recco as the play-by-play guy. And they called me up and said, hey, would you want to be Recco's from WFAN. Would you want to be the analyst for us? You going to pay me? They said no. I said, sounds good anyway. I mean, I was going to be there anyway. I thought it'd be fun. And the first game was on the road at Duke. And first game I didn't play, and obviously first game of broadcasting. And as soon as I took the headset off, I was like, well, this is what I got to do. Like I knew right then I had to do it. It just took me 5 years of working in advertising, having broadcasting be kind of a side job to figure out the avenues, make enough connections, start to have some TV games toward the end of that on MSG Varsity and Verizon Fios One that made me, try to go all in, quit my job, and try to see if I could make it work in broadcasting.
That's cool. When you first did your broadcasting, did it feel weird not playing the game?
Yeah, dude, that was tough. That was let's just say I medicated the night before with about 35 beers. They had quarter beers at Franklin Street going on, and a bunch of people that we went to college with and some guys I play with came down, because obviously when you're playing Duke, it's a big deal, and it's a cool experience for the players, obviously, for the alums as well. And we actually had it's funny, it was a part of a tournament. It's part of that 2K tournament, I think, that year, where they had the campus site games first. So it was 2 games. I can't remember, it was UC Irving and somebody first, and their game went long. And then they bought the New York City radio station time, starting at like 7:30, thinking you had like a 15 or 7:45, needed like 15-minute pregame into the game. That game went long. Guys would warm up. So it was like a 50-minute pregame show. And I remember Recco being like, what are we going to do? I was like, hey man, these are like my best friends. Let's just talk. So I'm sweating out maybe some booze and a little bit of nerves. And, but I'm excited. You're up in the gantry at Duke, and it's hot as heck up there. And looking down on the students that are already there. I mean, everybody was already piled in because the game was starting about 35 minutes late. Yeah, man, I was ready to go. It was a weird experience, yes, because I was like emotional that I wasn't out there with all my guys, but I also was doing this thing that I was having a lot of fun doing at the time that obviously opened up my career path.
Who would you say the best player you played against, with, or watched?
Best player I played with and against would be Amari Stoudemire. That was mostly at AAU in high school, probably. Played against a lot of great players. I mean, Alan Ray and Randy Foy and Curtis Sumter at Villanova, Julius Hodge at NC State. Actually, the one time in those games too, NC State were up late in the Garden, lose that game by like 4 or 5. Villanova were up late on the road. We lose the game by like 3 or 4. Up late with like 3 minutes to go. Mid-major players always remember that. It's really easy it's not easy. You can hang for 30 or 35, but if you can get to the bell, the full 40, and you're still on top, that's really hard because usually you're playing on somebody else's court with everybody against you, and those dudes are the biggest difference between mid-major players and high-major players is the guy across from me is probably 2 or 3 inches taller, runs faster, jumps higher. Doesn't mean he's more skilled than me, doesn't mean he can shoot better than me, but his God-given talent is usually a little better. The one time I felt like we didn't belong on the floor was we played. This is bad scheduling, but we went and played a West Coast trip my sophomore year at Columbia. We play Prairie View in some tournament. Cal first, we lose by a couple to Cal. We play Prairie View the next night. We beat Prairie View. We fly up to Washington to play Seattle to play Washington. This is the year before they're the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So you got Nate Robinson, Brandon Roy, Luke Jensen, Trey Simmons, and I mean I kid you not. Like if the ball went up, it was like up our back within 2 seconds. Like I could not sprint back fast enough, and it got ugly, man. We got absolutely destroyed. And why I'm guarding 50 feet from the hoop, and he's just walking by me. That was bad coaching because I'm not built to do that. And it was an ugly game, but that was probably one time I was like, dude, we don't belong on the court. But there were a lot of good players there, and obviously Brandon Roy was the rookie of the year 2 years later in the league.
I can imagine Brandon Roy, Nate Robinson, both had great mid-range shots where they also could drive great. Yeah. Difficult to cover, but out of college, talk about broadcasting. How do you like covering high school sports in New York?
That's what gave me my first opportunity, man. And I think that's a lot important to anybody trying to get in this industry. Is you don't walk into ESPN as your first job unless you're a Hall of Famer. Then they let you do that. But as most normal people, you got to work your way up there. You've got to kind of hone this craft, and reps are really important. I was really fortunate to meet a guy that I interned for at MSG. His name was Mike Quick. He's a legend in the New York sports area and covering high school sports, been doing it for 35 plus years. Awesome guy that I remain in contact with years after that internship because we just see each other at games, and he just loved talking ball. He's a good dude, really good dude. When they launched this network, we kind of got in contact. He helped get me in the door there, and I got to do a couple games. And I think and what really changed things, he wanted me to bring me in to do some studio work. They as a company said, hey, we want to teach you to be a host. Only playing at Columbia, that was a huge development for me. I'd never read off a teleprompter. I didn't know anything about hosting. So I needed that. I wanted to diversify my skill set, thinking that I'm playing at Columbia as an analyst, you're only going to go so far. But working with those people at MSU Varsity was game changing because all these people had come from big networks and they wanted to run this business and they were running it well and invested a ton of money in the resources behind the camera. We had like 6 HD trucks. I mean, it was wild in terms of what was going on, the investment going on. But the quality of the product we put out was really good. And I think that made me learn how to prepare. And I mean, in all honesty, I would treat those games like they were the Final Four. I mean, it was I would be calling coaches and talking to people's parents, but it didn't matter if it was the Long Island Wantagh, JV game or the Garden City Wantagh JV game, or if it was the Final Four. I mean, that was really important to do the job as best as possible. And then working with people that were giving you feedback and helping you get better, especially guys like Mike Quick again, helped put me on a path to start to learn how to do the job well. And that was it was critical. Covering high school sports is a lot of fun because obviously the kids are young. You remember being in that stage. I remember the TV games that I had, and we were on TV probably 10 or 11 times when I was in high school. I remember some funny stories from that. So it was just it was great, and it was well run, and worked with a lot of really good people that have actually gone on to do a lot of really good things in broadcasting. And Steve Gelbs is at SNY. John Brickley was up at ESPN for a long time, and forgetting other folks. There were a lot of people that had a lot of success behind the camera and in front of the camera from that shop. So I really was fortunate to have that opportunity to start to learn my craft and learn how to do the job, and then get a lot of reps in before moving on to NBC.
What do you say during that time? You're just completely focused on keep building yourself and getting better at the job?
Yeah, that and surviving, that and making money, man. It's a real hustle. I mean, that was,
Yeah.
like I said, quit my job, went all in, moved uptown, tried to cut all expenses and started to really look at things. And I think networking was a really big piece that I already mentioned quick. But on the Verizon side, when I was in advertising marketing, I was writing a lot. They were one of our biggest clients, Verizon. So I was doing a lot of content deals, working on those around things like the Big East Conference and the Big East Tournament, big sponsorship deals with different schools. So you kind of understood where they were going. And when they launched Fios One, I told them, I was like, hey, I work as a broadcaster. And I'm actually, they were like, can you put me in contact with whoever the producer is? They were like, yeah, it was great. So using that contact to get to get another opportunity with another network to get a lot of reps. I mean, you need to be on air as much as possible. It's the job. There are a few jobs where there's no practice if the light's not on. You can practice till the cows come home, but it's different when the light's on, when you're watching the action, everything's unfolding in real time. So you just need to get those reps. So yeah, I mean, I did a ton of stuff there with Fios as well, and still doing the Columbia games too. We started hosting a little Columbia weekly show to work on hosting and stand-ups and reporting and asking questions and follow-ups and all that other stuff to learn to kind of be a reporter as well. So again, trying to diversify skill sets was a real critical thing, and having those opportunities across different organizations was really important.
How was it working NBC Sports Network and Comcast Sports Network?
They were awesome, and they were you in this business you got to work really hard. Like I said, you have to use every network connection possible, but you got to be lucky sometimes too. And NBC went out and got the Ivy League. They went and did a deal with the Ivy League, so they had I think 10 football games and like 20 or 15 basketball games on their air. And they were, I just had changed agents, and her name was Amy Leone. She was like my mom in this business. She's outstanding. She's now the head of talent at Fox Sports 1. But she'd just come from NBC, and she's like, all right, well, here, I know the guys there. We had to pitch you as the analyst. And I went into Dan Steer, who still was one of their executives there. Great guy. Used to run college basketball at ESPN before my time. But I pitched to him, well, I would be the right guy. And he took a shot on me. And again, you have no name value. And this is an era too, you got to think of in 2011, 12, 13. We were still in the era that name value was kind of all that mattered. In terms of TV and analysts. But now we see with a lot of the biggest analysts, whether it's, Dan Orlovsky or Marcus Spears, or you can run through the gamut. I mean, I'm sitting there on the ESPN set 3 or 4 days a week, and nobody knows who the hell I am. So that they were more concerned with content and quality in the last couple of years. But back then it was not that case. But Dan was, and he said, okay, the league inside out. We want to have somebody that's intimate with this product, and the audience is going to connect with, because they know this league is unique and it's different, and you're passionate about it. So they gave me that opportunity, which was huge. And at the same time, because I started to learn how to be a host at MSU Varsity, we connected with Prince Al Hair, who was the head of talent at NBC Sports Network at the time. A great guy that really helped me too. He said, okay, we really like your hosting stuff. Let's try to get you in one of our regionals, which ended up being the Comcast Sportsnet New England regional up in Boston. So we could do, that would be hosting, reporting, and sometimes they used me as an analyst with basketball, whether it be the Celtics they had, or less of the Celtics and more of any college stuff, but they knew that would be a skill set. And then I'd still be able to do the national games on NBCSN every weekend or whenever those things called for, and tournaments and whatnot. So it was like a perfect setup to take what I learned in terms of the analyst piece was further ahead. I was better at that, and I still needed to learn how to be a host and reporter on a different level, kind of like I'd maxed out at MSU Varsity, and now a chance to move up the ranks. You're going from, AA to AAA. Now we're and the guy there, Kevin Miller, the news director, was outstanding. And I shout out a lot of these people because I do think it's important to recognize that nobody gets ahead in this business, or nobody makes a career out of it without having, like I said before, some luck, a ton of hard work, and people that believe in you, and people that give you opportunities. And Kevin Miller was another one of those guys, news director up there, that let me kind of do whatever. If I pitched it to him and said, hey, we want to do this documentary on this. Hey, I love soccer. Let me cover the Revs in a weekly show. Hey, the U.S. national team is in town. Can we do this? Hey, the Copa America is happening. Can we do this? Hey, I have an idea around the Celtics. Can we do this? What about the draft stuff? What about the Final Four? What about the World Cup? And every time, you can do it. You can do it. As long as you have a budget, we ain't spending a lot of money. As long as we can, if we had to sell something, we can sell something. He was on board, man. And he was great in terms of providing feedback and guidance. And there were other people there too that helped me really grow in the 3 years that I was there, culminating with going to the Olympics in Rio. And then I moved on to ESPN.
Yeah, how was it covering it for sports and the 2016 Olympics?
It was amazing, man. I was, you see the Brazil ball behind me. I love Brazil, love the culture there. But NBC, just like every company, it was going to much more remote production model, particularly around the Olympics. So in 2014, I knew I wanted to go to Brazil. I knew I would still be an NBC employee. My deal was 3 years at the time, 2013 of October to 2016 of October. So I knew I'd be there, and I said, okay, how do I get myself to Rio? Because I want to work the games, but I don't want to be in Stamford, Connecticut. I don't want to be in New York at 30 Rock, where the majority of the people are. I want to be in Rio. So I thought I got to learn the language. I think that's going to be my angle to say I can do my reporting and pieces in the native language. I can translate them, and then I can offer something different. So that's what I did. I went and I learned the language. It took me about 2 years to learn it well enough to be confident and comfortable and do all my interviews in Portuguese down there and translate them afterwards, work with the editors to make our pieces. I worked with a group called Sports Desk. We did features and different things, which was it was probably the best professional experience of my life. It was a lot of fun learning the language too, and meeting a bunch of people in Brazil over different forums online to learn the language, and my tutor that was huge to help me. But I've never been more nervous than that first interview though, because I was like, all right, I've sold this thing. This guy speaks zero English. I can't brick. It went well. It was great. He was a lot of fun. Piece turned out great. I did say my producer afterwards, she said, I thought you were full of crap, man. I thought we were going to do the translator. I thought you had nothing. I thought that was going to be a joke. I was like, well, thank you for your confidence, but it did work. And it was just a phenomenal experience. Loved every minute of it. I wish I could run it back.
Yeah, I'm trying to do something similar. I decided I was like, I'm going to do a minor in Spanish. I want to learn a second language. It's a wild option. How do you like learning Portuguese? Was it difficult for you?
Yeah, languages don't come easy to me. I took French for about 6 years. I can say about 6 things. But I do think how we teach language, how we teach language in this country is backwards. We teach the reading and the grammar and all this other crap where you have to be able to listen and communicate primarily. And then the writing and reading can come afterwards, if you will. But actually learning how to use the language is the most important part. So it took me a long time. Like I said, I had a great tutor. If you're looking to do it, I think the site is still there. It was called italki.com, where all they do is they link you up with native speakers from other countries that are trying to learn your native language. So just this platform where you can connect. Now they have services on there and tutors and stuff, but the only thing I wanted was just to meet people. And then you take that offline to Skype or whatever, and just have conversations. And that really took my capacity to speak and to engage and to hear to another level, because Brazil, similar to the U.S., is a massive country with tons of different accents, tons of different slang, and you want to be able to communicate with everybody as you're running through Rio, which is a major city. You don't know who you're going to react to, you don't know who you're going to interact with, or I don't know who you're going to interview sometimes before you get down there and start figuring stuff out. So that site was huge, and that really took things to a different level. It was obviously huge that at the time I was still unmarried. My wife was in New York at the time. I was in Boston. I didn't have any kids, so I had a lot of time. So if you have time, that thing can actually happen. Trying to do that now would be impossible, but I could invest hours a day to just listening to Portuguese, the Globo, one of the channels down there, watching soccer games down there in Portuguese, or like spending time talking to my tutor or talking to these people I was meeting. I mean, it was out probably 4, 5, 6 hours a day for about a year and a half, 2 years to get to that point. Because like I said, these things that doesn't come easy to me.
Yeah. Do you say you still once in a while find yourself talking in Portuguese?
I speak to Portuguese to my daughter, who's now 3. I would say about 80% of the time, and she understands everything I say. She still always responds in English. It is a big leap to actually get their mouths to move and be functional in the language, especially how my wife doesn't speak it. And that first year when she was alive, I was traveling probably 5 or 6 days a week before the pandemic. So we were definitely behind the 8 ball, but it's still pretty cool that she can understand everything I say. And she's getting to the point now she's really interested in like the translation of every word. So she'll ask me how to say this in Portuguese, I say that, and just kind of walk around the house, point the parts of her body. So yeah, I still speak it, but the hearing is definitely behind because I'm not listening to anybody talk. So that's definitely a struggle, I'm sure.
Well, after NBC, how was it joining ESPN?
It was great, man. It came out kind of in an interesting manner. Initially, the offer was for me to be a sports center anchor there. Which when we went to negotiate it after the Olympics, we could no longer do that. As they actually said, hey, we're about to go through some layoffs. We're going to lay off a fair amount of sports center anchors. We're not bringing anybody in that regard. They made the offer months before. So the world had changed. And I was like, oh, okay. So they would like, do you want to be a basketball analyst? I was definitely interested in that. I also thought it would be a bit of a risk, again, taking a bet on yourself to say, okay, hey, we're only going to do, it was a smaller deal. It was like 30 usages for X amount of dollars, just for the basketball season, 1 year, we'll try you out. But I kind of just believed, hey, once I get in there, I get in the door, I'll do what's necessary to gain more traction within that group. And then maybe there's the soccer component, which I'm very passionate about. And that's where, again, connections come back into play. I met a guy in 2015 named Michael Cohen, because I was really into soccer, and my agent thought it'd be good to talk to him. He used to produce the World Cups for ESPN and is involved in a lot of different soccer productions. We met, had coffee, had a great time, liked my reel. We'll just be in touch. And then I was ending that first basketball season, year and a half later, and he called and said, hey, Lifetime has just bought the NWSL, bought part of it. That's the National Women's Soccer League. They're going to do a big package around, a weekly thing. We want you to be our pregame host, half sideline reporter, post-game host, and at times do play-by-play. I was like, I'm all in. It's great. So that connection, again, led me to be more involved in soccer. Also led me to learn how to do play-by-play more. I'd never done it. I wanted to do it. So I started doing a lot of USL games, which is like the MLS's, it's the second tier US soccer, because they had a remote facility down in Fort Lauderdale, which where I happened to move. So that was convenient. Cohen was involved there. Again, he plugged me in there. He plugged me in the NWSL thing. So now I'm building out, again, another skill set, doing more sideline reporting, which I hadn't done before, doing play-by-play and soccer, which is something I'm very passionate about and want that to is part of my career now. I want that to be a major part going forward. And that was, again, a guy that I met years before, coming to fruition, maintaining contact, just checking in. And all of a sudden there was an opportunity there. And that kind of came together to fill out the rest of my year. CBS launched an over-the-top platform down, again, their office immediately was in Fort Lauderdale, CBS Sports HQ, which is obviously still going very well. But I was part of the group that launched that, did that first show for that network, which was really cool. So those different components allow me to continue. ESPN was just basketball, but I was allowed to fill out the rest of my year with different things and continue to learn different skill sets, work with different companies, different people, which was integral in my kind of growth and development.
Would you say you're gaining more and more love every year for soccer?
I mean, my love's about maxed out now. Like I'm in a full-on passionate fan. I've been that way for years, but now that you get to be in the game, doing the Euros this past summer was a lifetime, goal of mine to do a global soccer event. Granted, we couldn't be there, but it did, we were just being in the studio and covering it with so many great people and legends of the game, Alessandro Del Piero, Steve McManaman, Tim Howard. You could run down a list of great players, great coaches, and great people we just got to work with. Julie Foudy, who me and Foudy worked together for years because of the NWSL stuff. It was a lot of fun. And obviously things were different. I did my ESPN, I'm now a full-time only ESPN exclusive employee, been that way since 2019. But part of the reason I made that decision at that time to come on in that regard was that I would be working the ACC Network and some of the collegiate soccer, calling all those games, hosting on ACC Network, hosting for ESPN, college basketball for ESPN. They were allowing me now to do all the things I've done other places under one roof, which provides a little more security. Obviously, ESPN, a lot of visibility, and with the great properties, they have a lot of opportunities like the Euros. So yeah, I mean, I've been a hugely passionate fan, remain that, and now love just being able to cover the games, particularly call games. I think calling soccer is one of the things I love doing in this business. Maybe my favorite thing to do in the business. I think I still have the most growth area there, but probably the thing I enjoy doing the most.
Talk about the ACC Network. How was that when you first found out about it? Because that wasn't until 2019 they made the network, right?
Yeah. They created the network in 2019. Amy Rosenfeld runs that, and she reached out, and I mean, probably the first time we met was winter of 2017, maybe just a turn of 2018. So we were a year and a half out from the network even launching, and she was already putting her pawns in place because that's how she works. She's a smart person, strategizing how she wants the network to look, who she wants on air, and she pitched me that, hey, if you come here full time, you help launch this network, which would be a unique thing. You call all our soccer games, call games. You'll be one of our main hosts. We'll keep you doing your college basketball stuff with ESPN. There'll be other opportunities within the broader company, ESPN, which has been that case. This past year, I've done SportsCenter, obviously the Euros, and hosting NBA coverage and different stuff, NBA draft stuff, which has been amazing. Basically, everything she told me has come to fruition. So I come back to people that believe in you, give you an opportunity, and leave you that opportunity. You gotta crush it, and you gotta kind of make them feel like they made the right decision, vindicate their choices, which I like to think that I've done. And it's yeah, it was cool to launch a network too, man. Because for them, it's a blank slate, and you're kind of trying to figure it out as you go. What works, what doesn't work. How do the people behind the camera grow along with people with the camera and in front of the camera? It's been a really interesting, cool experience. And the pandemic didn't exactly help us, but again, the nimble nature of our company overall at ESPN and how they then remoted. Right now, I've got a laptop, some sort of box over here, 6 different microphones, 3 monitors for all these different things, 2 cameras for whether it's studio hits or game stuff or whatever's going on radio. To remote all these things, and I'm one of 500 people that did this for, maybe more. I don't know. It's pretty crazy what went on there. So for ACCN specifically to go through 1 year and get your footing under you, not even 1 full year, like 9 months, get your footing set, get ready to think about where we're going to go next, and then have that happen was a big blow. But everybody evolved and adapted and figured things out, and the network continues to do quite well. And it's been great.
How different it feels is being inside your house, reporting, watching games, just being on air.
Yeah, it's weird, dude. The biggest thing is the games. I'm most excited. Like when we called the College Cup, the NCAA Final Four this year, it was the first time I was at an event since March of 2020. So it was 15 months, and that place was packed. The energy was there, and you miss that. It's really hard to call a game flat. When you're in a studio, there's 2 people there anyway. You're speaking to a camera, and you get used to that, and you just kind of, it is what it is. But when you're doing a game, the fans are the soundtrack, the fans are the energy, the fans are the lifeblood of the event. And when they're not there, everything is different. And you got to fill that space, and you can't fill it the same way because you're just not capable of it. And at times your energy goes down because you're feeding off them a lot of times. So doing games in the house is tough. Looking forward to getting back on the road here. College basketball will have games on the road again coming up in a couple of weeks. The ACC tournament will be on the road again. College Cup this year will be back on the road. So in the next 2 months, a lot of games in venue, which definitely changes the dynamic. So having fans back and it's cool to not have to travel. That's easy to be done with the game. Walk upstairs and grab a bourbon and just sit out. It's pretty great. But the actual game itself, the product does suffer in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to getting back out there.
Oh, right from the pandemic started, it was right from the ACC tournament was going on. How was that? Was that weird? Because I think it was only 2 games really played on the hit.
Yeah, we were there. Our whole set was set up. We did the Tuesday night playing games, if you will, and then we did Wednesday night is when everything happened with Gobert. So I think North Carolina just destroyed Syracuse. We get done interviewing a couple of the Carolina guys, and Kelsey Riggs was hosting, Carlos Boozer, myself, Luke Hancock, the analyst on our college basketball coverage then. And she had to explain there's a global pandemic. Nobody knew what the hell that meant. That was the World Health Organization that said that. Rudy Gobert tested positive. We'll keep an eye on the story. Then by the time we go back to the hotel, the NBA had shut down. It seemed like we were going to be a wrap. The next day, I have a radio hit at 8:45. I know Billis was right before me, I think at 8:30, Jay Billis, and I think the commissioner, Mark Swafford, was at 9:30. And Jay and I get done and we're talking, waiting for the commissioner to come. And I think we're just saying he's got to cancel things, right? You can't. He didn't know any more than anybody. He just said, they asked him, are we going to be playing? Because games tipped at noon. He's like, are people be playing on this court at noon? He said, yes, we'll be playing on this court at noon. But I do have to talk to the other power conference commissioners. But as of now, we're playing. And I was just shocked. And I was dumbfounded by that. I was like, wow, this is really going to happen. And I mean, those dudes were on the court. For Florida State and Clemson were on the court warming up. And then they walked out, told everybody to go separate ways. They brought up the trophy, gave it to Florida State. They told us, we're going to get off the set. We'll hang out here for the next 5 or 6 hours if they need us for anything. And then we got on a plane that night, went home, and I didn't leave for work for another 4 months. We got back in the studio in the middle of August. And that was, it was very educational. I learned how much I do love my job, how much I thrive off the energy of the red light on the camera and having to prepare and having to do the job. So when it was taken away, I definitely have a different appreciation for it and definitely don't take it for granted, for sure. How
great was that first time back on camera in person?
It was awesome, dude. It was the first time to get back in the studio. We were excited. Everything was different. I mean, the building still feels different. The building's still 15% populated, if that. So it still feels different. And of course, everybody's masked up, but just being there and having the rundown, having the energy, like, here we go, we're making TV again. Because we were doing stuff like this off our iPads or whatever, because they hadn't fully got us all remoted into other things. So it's pretty much iPad, Instagram live things they'd want us to do, or this type of little show we're trying to put together, do a couple interviews. It was all kind of cobbled together. But the first time we got back in studio, I think it was like August 17th, was pretty exciting. And it's, we've been there ever since, and it's been pretty great.
Talks about SportsCenter. That was the first time hopping on there. Were you nervous at all?
For SportsCenter?
Yeah.
Not really nervous. It's because A, I think they prepare you really well. B, coming from obviously doing other shows within the company, the processes are the same. You know, the systems you use are the same. How the terminology is very similar. So that kind of helps the transition. And again, I had really great producers that made sure I was good. I had great people on air. I worked with Randy Scott, David Lloyd, Michelle Steele, and a couple. I think to name a few. And it was very comfortable. And I do think it sounds weird. You can't I think anytime if you try to plan exactly what you're going to say, or you get too nervous and psyched out, like in this business, you're never going to perform to your best. You got to do all the prep work, know all the stuff. Obviously, you write a little bit more in sports. I don't usually write much, but I'll write more like VOs and stuff because I want to hit the timing they had. The show is timed out pretty properly versus some other things we do at different places. So I was just more excited than nervous, man. I just kind of want to get out there and let it rip, shoot your shot. And had a lot of fun doing it. Love doing it. Look forward to the next time. Scheduling is a little difficult right now, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was great. Good people.
That's good. What's your biggest, just when young people trying into industry, what's your biggest advice?
I think like I said before, there's no replacement for hard work. It's a remarkably challenging and competitive industry. So you've got to grind. I think you've got to have a diverse skill set in today's media landscape. If you can do 2 or 3 or 4 jobs and you're saving the company another role or two, you increase your value, you're more likely to get the job. So the more diverse your skill set is, again, that's more hard work. You got to work to do different things and learn to do different things. You have to be very open to feedback. I think that's one thing that's been very helpful for me as a former athlete. I just almost don't care what I do well. All I want to hear is what needs to get better, what needs to improve, what are the points that there could be a strengthening of your game. And that's, especially as I was growing, that was really huge, because I would just impress upon all my bosses or people at work and just tell me what's better. Tell me what's better. I don't care what's good. And they were very clear about those things. That helped me a lot. Still helps me to this day, obviously. And then I would say, like I said before, the networking piece. So keep whoever you meet that has had some success, especially if you meet people behind the camera or executives, you have to maintain that relationship. It's incumbent on you to check in with them, and don't feel that you're bothering them once every 5 months, 4 months, or just drop a line. Here's what I'm doing. If you have a reel you want to share, or you have a question you want to talk about, or whatever, if you make a connection with somebody and you have a good rapport, or even if you don't let that connection go. You got to work and maintain that connection over time, because, like I said before, you don't know what's going to come of it. And this is a relatively small world, ironically. So you just got to be. Your network is really important with your growth in the business and finding opportunities and your career development. So it's hard work, diversify your skill set, desire feedback, need feedback, want feedback, and your networking piece. You gotta deliver for yourself. You got to do the work, connecting to people to get the jobs.
Excuse me. Those are all the questions I have. I appreciate all the answers you gave me, and I know you had a tough schedule, and I appreciate you hopping on this call. Is there anything else you want to add?
That's it, man. If anytime like I said, if you need any help with anything, you want to talk about anything else, I'm here. Hit me up.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Later.